Hi and welcome to the Lightleaders, a podcast for lightworkers who want more money, power and impact. I'm your host, Alex E. Lember. I believe that we are currently in the middle of a global awakening of humanity and that leveraging entrepreneurship is the fastest way to raise the consciousness of our planet. So in this podcast, I interview lightworkers and conscious entrepreneurs who follow their soul mission and have built a business around it. I call them light leaders, and this is the new paradigm. You will hear their stories and, more importantly, receive tools, tips, and strategies on how you can also impact more people and grow your business while following your soul mission. If you hear little nuggets you love and you'd like to share, screenshot this episode and share on your Instagram stories. Make sure to tag us at the Lightleaders podcast and we will repost. There's a device I love and use almost every day. It's called the Healy. It sends specific frequencies to the body. It's been developed by quantum physicists from Germany, and it is the next evolution of health and well-being. It has amazing results. On top of it, it's an entrepreneurial opportunity. This is how I monetize my lifestyle, my brand, and this podcast. So if you're interested in getting this amazing device for yourself, or also in the entrepreneurial opportunity, I would love to help you. You can go to www.thelightleaders.org/Healy, Healy. Hi and welcome to this new episode of The Light Leaders. Today I'm with Sarah Blackah. Sarah is a feminine leadership expert. She created multiple six-figure freedom lifestyle businesses, and she is passionate about creating leaders and teams that are operating in their highest creative frequency. She is passionate about activating thriving communities and projects that build a beautiful new world. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So Sarah, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, good question. I'm actually really grateful for that little meditation we just did before. And I'm running the Being program on Healy, and I'm noticing more and more just moments to be still, be present. Like that to me is where there's just so much juice and richness. So yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah,
there's plenty more things.
Presence and gratitude. Sometimes I'm grateful for my gratitude practices.
Yes.
So Sarah, I like to give some background context for the listener.
Yeah.
Starting with what's your greater why? What's your vision for the world and what motivates you? And also, how do you bring that vision into manifestation through your business?
Oh, I like that, because that's really what it's about for me, is grounding. Like I believe we all have a big vision and mission on our heart. And then there's another piece to actually grounding that into reality. And that's been a beautiful journey for me. So if I look back, like to when I started waking up and started having visions about what the world could look like, it really was community orientated. So in my biggest vision, I think I always just saw that, you know, when I was back in Australia and you live in a house and there's four walls around you and you don't know your neighbor and people are struggling financially and they're working all these hours and cars and traffic and, you know, health and like I was just like, something just doesn't feel like this is fully thriving human beings. And so, yeah, my vision and journey has to become, how do we create real freedom? How do we really follow our highest calling and live from the heart? How do we develop communities where everybody is thriving and is abundant in income, in food, in water, in nourishment? I mean, we're very blessed here in Ebarle. And how do we create communities that are entrepreneurial and create projects that are sustainable and, you know, really supportive of the earth and also like back to how do we relate more in tribe and community and raise kids in a different way. So it's the bigger vision is really how do we create this new way of being, which we talk a lot about in our community, and how that is manifesting currently. I mean, I've had several businesses, but as you'll know, I'm a leader in Healy, and I feel like it's a great way to work together to create freedom, to inspire and work in geniuses in a way that is practical, like not a woo-woo, like, all collaborating and co-creating abundance. Like these terms get just like thrown around very airy-fairy, but this is I live this day in, day out of collaboration, co-creating abundance, optimizing health, and a lot of the people that get drawn to work with me want to buy land and want to do want to buy land and raise kids in a certain way. And so it's, I feel like it was a bigger vision that I didn't know how to anchor. And now that plus I do, coaching and other projects, but that is, it's grounding in to the real world. It's not just an idea.
Yes, and just to give a bit of context to the listener, I start my podcast each time talking about this little device called the Healy that sends frequency to the body. And now it is commercialized through network marketing. So the idea is that when you distribute the pure product, you make commission from it and you can build teams. And so it is one tool to create a freedom lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's how we met, actually.
Yes, that is how we met.
Because we're both part of this, what I find is a beautiful community, a great, great product. And I think you said something that's super interesting. It's that a lot of people talk about creating the new earth, co-creating the new earth, generating abundance. But often people, they have different conceptions. And it's until they start actually working together and concretely creating projects, sharing resources together, that you can see maybe it wasn't fully aligned. And that's where you go into more depth about what it actually means to collaborate, to create community, from the utopia to the actual creation.
There's a few like things that get dismantled when you go from the idealistic to the day to day, and it teaches us a lot about ourselves when we actually, live it day to day, and you're like, oh, okay, I thought that was a cool idea, but it's not. And I learn a lot through community and through working with others. So
nice. And so to give a bit of background on your story, I'd be interested to know, well, first, if you can remember a moment that was like a aha moment that made you think, okay, I want to embrace a career path, an entrepreneurial path where because you say everyone has a vision, but most people haven't clearly defined their vision, maybe at an unconscious level. But to have a vision and to say, okay, my business is going to align with that is not something most people have done. So did you have a moment when you said, okay, I want to work, that's my why, and I want to work towards it? And then how did you do? I know you've been in other network marketing businesses, you're doing coaching.
Yeah, I feel like the why has evolved and deepened over time. I remember it was probably 10 plus years ago. Like I was in corporate health with Taryn, actually. She hired me for my first job.
Okay.
And
Taryn, who has been on this podcast
She's been on
before.
this podcast too. And I remember like I was in health and I cared about health, and I wanted to, I always was like so lit up by like, what do you get excited about in life, and how can I help people be healthier? And so I always had that, but felt very limited in a corporate environment, in corporate structures, to really express that and support people with that. And then I remember, it sounds cliche, but I came to Bali, read a Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek book, which I'm sure many of you have. And that was actually my aha moment, because that was a paradigm shift. No one I knew in my circles was talking about that. Tara and I read it together, and it activated something in me where I'm like, that's possible. Like I could live in Bali one day, and now we're sitting here in a podcast room in Bali. I've definitely lived in Bali for many years on and off now. So, but yeah, I literally, it says at the start of that book, do not read this book unless you want to quit your job. I went back, I take action when I'm inspired. I quit my job, and I just was like, I'll figure it out. And I did. And there were many twists and turns, and freedom was always a big driver, like freedom for for me and for others to be fully expressed. And then, you know, as you hit rock bottoms on your entrepreneurial freedom lifestyle journey, my why deepened, and it, you know, like it really is now about, I love working with women particularly because I've had my journeys with that, the feminine, but also, which is accompanying that is intuition, and how do we have a ride or die relationship with our intuition.
So we'll get into this. Just before, can you be a bit more specific maybe on, if you want to share a little bit, like what did you do on your freedom lifestyle journey before focusing on Healy, which is what
great.
you do now?
So I had, so I tried a few things myself and realized I sucked at being an entrepreneur. Like I had a business model for creating health change, actually, like 12-week online platform for creating health change. I didn't get off the ground. I was crap at being an entrepreneur. Then Isagenix, which was another network marketing company, came along, and I realized, and this is a clue to what I'll talk about later, no doubt, with intuition, my end result was helping people have health transformations. The how changed. So my crappy entrepreneurial business did not get off the ground, but then Isagenix came in, and that was a way to create change. That was a way to get freedom. So that was great, and I had quite a lot of success with that company, but it didn't fully align. And then I stepped out of that after, 4 years, and then went on to do a few of my own things. But I really explored a lot of different ways to bring my vision to life, and then, they weren't as effective as these models. And when this came back around, more aligned, really pioneering in the wellness space and all the things that I knew were good about these models, it was the way to bring it to life in its fullness.
It's interesting because for me, I started also doing online programs that didn't take off. And got me more towards the network marketing route. Why? Well, let's say because it's closer in time when you compare the programs and then Isagenix, what made the difference that one worked and not the other?
Well, I mean, it depends how you define work. Like Isagenix still worked. I created.
But I mean, Isagenix worked for you quite better than your business before.
Oh, why that worked?
Yeah.
Oh, because like a lot of people, and this is why I talk a lot about genius, because a lot of people are really good at what they're good at and they're not good at a lot of the other things. And I wasn't good at a lot of aspects of business. I didn't know business. I didn't know sales. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know product development. I didn't know, there's like, they say you get into business for the 10% you're passionate about, which was me helping people get healthy. And then there's 90% of the stuff that I'm crap at and know nothing about. Which
is often the trap of the solopreneur, right? Trying to do everything and the things they're not good at. Have you read The Big Leap?
Yes.
That's why you got the Zone of Genius
Part of. I like my advanced intuitive training touches a lot on that, a genius, but that's the thing. And you're doing it by yourself. You've got no support. You've got no mentorship. It's isolating. It's many reasons it didn't work. And so when I entered into this business model, I'm all of a sudden around a high vibe community that think similar. I'm getting mentored by people that are like several steps ahead. I've got systems, I've got processes, I've got a proven product, all those other elements are there. So I got to do what I'm good at, which is give a shit about people and help them create transformation in their lives. And so that's why it worked and I had great success. But like I said, there was not all the elements there. But we create and adjust. We create and adjust and get closer and closer when we're committed to that vision.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you talked about intuition.
Yes.
Do you want to share a bit more about why working on your intuition is a powerful business tool and how to do it?
Yeah, for sure. Like this is a topic I love to like debunk because I think, it can be a bit woo-woo or a bit fluffy and like not tangible. And the reason I got so into it was because I had just shit-kicking moments in my life where my health was shit and finances were shit, and I was looking to all these people for the right strategy or the right health plan or the right thing to eat or the right business model, and I just kept going further and further investing more that was putting me further into debt, and doing these health things, which was throwing me more out of balance. And I realized, like, I need to listen to me, like stop outsourcing my knowing. And so I was really curious, because a lot of times I thought I was listening to my intuition, but I was listening to my feelings. So I'm like, I want to master this. Like, I really want to get this piece. And so I started studying, and I hired a coach for a year, and I started studying advanced intuition with one of the best teachers of this in the world. And to me, what I've learned now is like a real structure. Like, structure has integrity, and it's like that dance of the masculine and feminine. Like, there's a way, and it's intuition / creative development, to tune in to an end result of what serves your highest good and the collective's highest good, and get a real end result for what you would love to create in your life, based on the fact that you're whole and complete. And then you've got something for your intuition to inform you about. If we're just listening to our intuition willy-nilly, like, there's a chance it's not, it's like, I feel like this, or I feel like that. Like, we need to give our intuition something to create a focus, an end result. And then, there's ways to actually, I can give you the 3 steps to really access our intuition in a reliable way. But the other piece of this is that a lot of people, I think, don't do, is that you also need real honesty with where you're at. And what happens when you know clearly what's true and where you're going, and you know clearly and you're honest with yourself of where you're at, that creates a creative tension, which then forces your intuition to rise up and give you the next steps to bridge that gap from where you are to where you want to be. So it's like truth of where I'm at, what I would love to create, and wisdom arises. It's like a triangle. A lot of people in that manifestation, alchemy kind of process either aren't clear on where they're going, aren't honest with where they're at, or don't follow through on what their intuition says. And so that is, the structure has integrity. And that's why I love teaching this in depth, because it works. It really, really works. And it's a practice, and it's a muscle to develop. And just quickly, the 3 ways to really access intuition.
Is it 3 steps or 3 ways?
3 steps. Good clarification. You can tell I get excited about this. I could talk about this topic all day. But the first is innocence. Now, especially people that have done heaps of personal development, heaps of spiritual development, heaps of business, we think we know a lot, and that actually completely blocks our intuition. And so coming into a space of childlike innocence, letting go of everything you think you know, is the first step to access your superconsciousness, a higher state. The second is observing what's obvious. Our intuition, like we know, is always that first thing that speaks to us before our mind kicks in and then tries to distort or change or shift it. And then the third one, which is again, like, takes us back to when we're younger, our imagination. Like, when we get something obvious, intuition can speak to us through symbols or feelings or words or sounds. But we let our imagination take it and expand it, and people think, oh, but I'm imagining or I'm dreaming, and it's like, but that's how our soul speaks to us, through our imagination. And so these things, obviously there's a lot more to it that we can't go in 30 minutes, but the main point I want to get across is that it's the opposite sometimes of logic and reason and rational, and so it can take a while, especially people that are quite in their heads, to learn to really hear that inner voice and use it and access it in a reliable way, where you can get the truth of things, and you're not trying to compensate. A lot of people, even successful people, put a lot of their energy into compensating or proving, when intuition just takes you to operate on a whole different level and really create things that have never been seen or done before.
Nice.
You can tell I could rant on this all day.
Yeah. Still, to go a bit more in details about the 3 steps, you talked about tuning into a state of innocence.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Good question. Well, I would guide you through it if we have more time, but ultimately it's getting still. You can go into a bit of a meditation and connecting with your heart. And sometimes, you know, even now, if anyone listening, I'm to guide you, it's like you just soften your consciousness and you can feel yourself starting to connect with everything through all time and space. And you can even imagine yourself walking into a room and you know, you see a crib there and you see a baby in that crib, and then imagine yourself becoming that baby. So you're really, I can see Alex's face, he's getting into it. But honestly, like, imagine yourself becoming that baby. You've got the good gag thing going on. And from that, imagine yourself looking out through childlike eyes. Even imagine, if it helps, you seeing your parents like staring down at you as you're in this bassinet or whatever you want to call it, and seeing the world through childlike eyes. And you know you're in it when you just feel this sense of expansion and connection and an openness and a receptivity and a curiosity about the world. You getting it?
Yeah, I'm awakening from my baby consciousness because we need to keep going with the podcast. But that was really nice.
Well, you could tell we could go a bit deeper, but it puts you in a state where we're not labeling and judging and putting everything in categories in the mind. It takes us into a highly creative, highly aware and in tune state.
Yeah.
That's why kids are so on
nice.
it and intuitive.
And then you observe. It can be visions. It can be, maybe for me, I often feel my body is contracting or expansive, probably expanding.
Yeah. Well, there's more to it. Like, we can choose to get the truth of things. We can choose to go into people's truest vision and what's called their land of plenty, where their vision sits in its most expanded form. Okay. We can go into your genius. We can go into your shadow. Like, I could even look at you and tell you what I love is when I facilitate groups is people that have never met anyone, you know, will be like, let's look at their shadow, and they will tell you all your shit straight up. Like, the thing is, we think it's all concealed nicely here, but when we learn to really train in intuition, we have access to all information about people. You know, when you meet someone and you get a bad feeling about someone, like there's a reason. Like, their body language, little things are telling you there's something off here.
That's why what you called before the superconscious, right? So there's what you're conscious, the subconscious in your body, but the superconscious is kind of accessing that all knowledge. Yeah. Like our superconsciousness is connected through all time and space, and that's where often, you know, like Steve Jobs and, you know, we think of the greats of business and entrepreneurship, Richard Branson, all these people, they talk about, you know, he knows in 30 seconds if he'll work with someone. That is a genius. That is his superconsciousness speaking to him. And so I honestly believe that intuition is the most important skill we can develop in the 21st century for business and life, because things are changing so quickly. And where superconsciousness, that's where people say, you know, you can't connect the dots looking forward, and it requires a radical trust, but you can look back and see how all those dots connected. Our mind can't do that. Our mind is very limited to what it knows. Nice. Also, you talked about being clear on where you're going before doing those 3 steps. But that's also can be a bit of a challenge in itself. So without going too much into details, you have things that helped you on that?
Yeah, well, I do this process with people called your land of plenty, where we get you into a bit of a meditative state, and you could do this at home with the 3 steps I've given you, but you step into a space where there's no limitation. And again, the important thing here is that it's based on what you would just love purely for the sake of having it. So many people have these goals but they think they need that in order to have that. So it's like the difference between what I'd call a means goal and an ends goal. So some people think, oh, I need to earn this money before I can start my podcast, or I need to lose weight before I can attract my soulmate partner. And that isn't a true end result. It's actually compensating for your perceived inadequacies, which is why we see so many people fail at creating change, because it's not a true end result for them. Does that make sense? Because it's a really important piece to get. So, you know, it's what we call a negative vision, and it leads to more of that. Okay. Whereas if you choose something because you would purely just love to create it, and that is your focus, it activates your super consciousness to create it. It activates and engages your natural talents and your natural abilities, your natural abundance. And so it's a totally different orientation to start coming from, and it completely changes your level of joy and your level of ability to create. And it's literally life-changing when you really understand how to shift that orientation.
Do you find there is you work mainly with women? That it's harder for men to have them access their intuition?
Not necessarily. I feel like, it's one of those things we think like naturally, it might be a bit more of a gift of women naturally to be more intuitive. I mean, we have cycles and things like that, which generally we can be a bit more connected to those rhythms and cycles in our intuition. I mean, people experience their intuition differently. But I know a lot of men that are really connected. Yeah, but I would, as a whole, say women, because it can also be tied in with like empathy and, sometimes empathy and intuition are correlated. I've realized like that emotional intelligence. But I think again, it's a skill that anyone can learn. So I don't think if someone was like, I really want to get great at intuition, I don't think, men can't access it in the same way women can.
Okay.
That answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And what excites you, because you're quite a bit into feminine leadership.
Yes.
And even in Ebarle, and I find in network marketing in general, it's mainly women.
Yes. What excites me about that?
Yes. What excites you about empowering women in particular?
Yeah. Well, we've done this big shift from the woman just stays at home and doesn't have financial independence. And then I think we swung out to the feminist movement, which women thought they had to kind of be more masculine and like men to have success and financial independence. And I feel like the real new way that I'm about is how do we be in our femininity, in our intuition, in our nurturing, our naturally sit where we naturally want to sit as women and still have financial independence and, have it all, but, from a space of nourishment. And I believe that network marketing is the best model I've come across that has so many aspects to it that support the feminine. Like there's structures and systems, there's community, like women love to co-create, especially the space we're in, it's really healing. Like women are the healers. We can heal in a way that we don't have to use our own energy. We don't burn out. We get to be intuitive. We get to be creative. So I feel like it really holds women, and that's why 70-80% of women are in network marketing. And also, I think there was a stat from the States about 80% of women that earn over $100,000 a year are in network marketing. So
do you mean 70% of the women in network marketing who make more than 100 are women?
No. In business.
Oh, okay, wow.
Or this was an American stat, but like full stop. Like 80% of women that earn over
are in network marketing.
Ah,
wow.
Alex is like, I like that stat. But honestly, like these, I feel like that industry really kind of revolutionized business for women. And then women like me who were like, I want to have my own business but have no idea how. It's a really beautiful either transition into entrepreneurship or just as a full-time proper profession because of all the reasons I've shared.
So you work with Healy, which is a frequency device.
Yes.
You're interested in frequencies in general?
I like a good frequency or two. Yeah, but again, like, you know, I've broken my leg recently and, you know...
Do you want to share about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two major... Healy's supported me, like, since I've had it the whole way through, but when I first came across it, I was really struggling. You know, we can't say it cures, diagnose, treats, etc., but I was really struggling with some hormone and mental emotional imbalances. I would say imbalances. And it really, really shifted me into a balanced energy, focused, got my vision back. Like, everything in my life shifted last year in a powerful way. So I really, like, embody that and felt my frequency shift, literally. So that was my initial journey with it. And then when things happened, like I broke my leg jumping off a 10-meter waterfall just before Christmas. And to have something quite traumatic like that happen and then have this device that I could literally run 3 times a day, not only for pain, but for inflammation, for my mental state. Like, I've actually been pretty pain-free the whole way through, and it's recovering really quickly. So, yeah, it's a tool that's there to support us through life, really.
And you told me just before about also how your intuition told you something at the time.
Yeah, well, this goes back to, you know, when you're a teacher of something and you really want to master it, life will really help
Test
you
you.
master it. And I was sharing with Alex before, you know, we ran a ceremony. We were up in Lavina on the 20th on solstice. And it just wasn't flowing. And this goes to something I'm really big on as well, is about being in the ease of life. And that doesn't mean that there's not creative tension and you'll have to get uncomfortable, but there's a difference. And this ceremony, just things were just not flowing with it. And intuitively, I was like, something is off with this. And, you know, sometimes it's easier upon reflection. Looking back, I would have, but we already had all the people coming up and we had the shamans and the musicians and we had it. And Alex and I were talking about it. It was an integrity piece of like, I want to honor the commitments and what I've made to people, you know, a bit worried maybe about what people would think. But I knew something was off, and then the ceremony was all right. But then the next day, this happened, and there were a few things that next day as well that were obvious, right? And so it's been a huge initiation, and I feel like my intuition's just up leveled massively. But it was a real commitment to myself that like I have a ride or die relationship with my intuition now, and it does require learning and mastery because I know that that's what I want, is to have the ride or die relationship. But that means really getting good at what's intuition and what's like, oh, I don't feel like it, or it doesn't feel aligned for me. Like, there is a difference. And my commitment is to the mastering and honouring of that inner voice that I know to be true no matter what.
And can you talk about making that differentiation between, because we want to be reliable too, so we don't want to have I have a feeling about this event that I was putting together, I'm going to not show up and cancel because I don't have a feeling, versus, okay, here there's a really clear sign from my intuition, and maybe I won't be reliable, but that's so important that I follow my intuition that I will cancel, not show up.
Totally. And I think that's massive. We were talking about that before, especially like, you know, sometimes in Bali we can be like, you know, going with the flow and da-da-da. I think the important distinction is like, again, what is the bigger end result that you're creating? So in that case, for me, that was a kind of step in the middle. The ceremony was about bringing together leaders that want to be part of land projects, and that was actually my end result. So therefore, that step in the middle isn't necessarily going to make or break that end result, you know? So, but the thing was, you can get the truth of things. Like, you can intentionally say you've got a project, and it also is like, where's it coming from? That's really important too. But you can like step into a circle and be like, what's the truth of this? Using those steps I shared, and step in. And if I was to do that, the truth of that was like, this is just not the right time to be doing this.
Okay.
You know, like, so we can get curious, and if we're going for the truth rather than our feelings and our thoughts about something, if we go for the truth of something, we'll often get an insight into what's really happening. Yeah.
And you talked about ceremonies with shaman, something we're very open to talk about in this podcast.
Great. Love it.
Is it, you can give details, is it something that you feel put you more in touch with your intuition?
Totally. Like, I, again, followed my intuition start of last year and got led to a friend who's a shaman and a very successful entrepreneur just invited me around. Didn't realize it was my birthday to do a mushroom cacao ceremony. And I hadn't explored mushrooms before. And literally, that was January of last year, I saw all the things that were going to happen in the world that year. Like, not everything exactly, but I got the essence of it. And
Did you invest in Bitcoins then?
No, I didn't. Actually, that came to me in a recent mushroom ceremony.
Okay.
And I've actually interviewed a few people about both Bitcoin, and there's a connection with that and psilocybin, and that's a whole probably other podcast. But I saw that, I felt what was coming, and I also saw my place in it. It was like, move out of your house, say yes to Healy. Like, I saw it, and very clearly, and it was very grounded as well. Like, it wasn't this like, it was like, oh, this is a practical thing I can implement. And I just trusted that, and so much magic opened up. And so, yeah, again, when I'm guided to, not just because all the time, that's been quite a tool for me. And one thing I will say with that, it's like, I really believe these tools are important because there's, you know, we're doing this shift in consciousness, but it's like, again, not becoming dependent. It's like, get the insight, get the clarity, action it. And I just see sometimes I'm a big, like you, world bridger. And I feel like people go really deep into that, but don't integrate sometimes and I've done it myself, like the lessons and the clarity. And likewise, we can be too in the 3D, hustle, get it done, and not take time to access the higher wisdom. Not saying it has to be plants, but yeah, I feel like we become very powerful in the world where we can really integrate, these tools with real world results. Ground that in.
And bring it into manifestation in the physical world.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to approach the end of this podcast. What's next for you, Sarah, and how can people follow you?
Well, you can follow me on social media. I'm sure put links somewhere to something. But yeah, on social media, I'm running Advanced Intuition Training Day on the 27th, which will be online, like online retreat, I call it, where we're going to be going deeper into these principles that I've lightly touched on today. And I'll be in Bali. I've got a podcast I've just started called Sirens of Joy, which is specifically more aimed at feminine leadership, female leaders. And, we'll just be hanging out in the Evolve Healy community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And probably many other things that will
projects that I've been
future.
creating. Totally. Land is my next thing. Yeah.
Creating conscious communities here in Bali.
Yes, and then Bitcoin's a whole other thing we could riff on another day. I'm big on that, and it's embraces feminine principles as well, the essence of that. So I'm big on that too.
Okay, well, let's keep chatting. Thank you, everyone who listened, and thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your enthusiasm, your passion, and your knowledge about intuition, especially. Do you have a last word for the listener?
No, I just have had a ball. I'm no doubt, I always believe when you tune into something like this, if you take at least one thing and take that into your life, that, magic can happen. And I honor you for, obviously, if you're here, you're on that journey of creating impact in the world. So honoring you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for taking some of your precious time to listen to this podcast. If you stayed until the end, I assume it was insightful. If you like this podcast, please share with friends. Remember that if you tag us in your Instagram story, at the Lightleaders podcast. We will repost. Tell us what you've learned. You can also leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Now, if you think I can help you grow your soul mission business, you can register for a free 15-minute coaching call with me. Go to www.thelightleaders.org/free call. Thank you again, and let's co-create the conscious new earth together.